Welcome to episode 29 of the Teaming Up podcast. In this episode, Casey Prentice teams up with Brian Forrester, co-founder and CEO of Workshop Digital. The pair talks about digital marketing and the intersections into brand and public relations. If you haven't yet, make sure you're subscribed to Teaming Up and leave us a review if you like what you're hearing. Now, Casey, take it away.
Welcome to episode 29 of the Teaming Up podcast. Today we are joined by Brian Forrester, CEO and co-founder of Workshop Digital. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Today we're going to talk about the connection points between digital marketing and PR. And over the last couple of years, as our two agencies have worked across Richmond and beyond, Hodges dabbles a little bit in the digital marketing space. That's sort of my bread and butter at the agency. But our digital marketing space is not the same as your digital marketing space. So before we dive into this episode, we'll talk a little bit about language and data-driven decision-making and things like that. I think it'd be helpful to just start off by defining digital marketing and what that means maybe for each side of the table. So why don't you start off?
Okay. Wow. We could probably do an entire podcast on that. What is digital marketing? It's a evolving field, right? So I think what it means probably varies from person to person, but I guess broadly it's any sort of marketing that happens on the internet or in a digital environment. The internet now includes, connected TVs, potentially even satellite radio if you really want to kind of stretch it a little bit. But digital marketing is connecting businesses with customers, consumers, patients through any of those digital channels. For Workshop Digital, it primarily means search, Google search, remarketing, display, SEO, search engine optimization, so organic search visibility, programmatic advertising, which allows you to extend your banner ad, display ad, and video advertising across multiple channels. YouTube advertising, an extension of Google's platform. Analytics. So analytics is the practice of making sure that the digital marketing is actually working. And then we do some conversion rate optimization and landing page testing as well. So trying to improve conversion rates by using A/B experiments. So testing different variables to see if we can improve outcomes. So that, in a nutshell, and a very broad encapsulation, is what digital marketing is at Workshop.
Yeah. And on the Hodges side of things, we specialize in the areas of digital marketing that are rooted in the word. So we do a lot of email marketing. We'll do a lot of paid social because it's so adjacent to our organic social strategies, for example. Yeah. But even some of the descriptions that you were just saying, I feel like the world of digital marketing is constantly evolving because the channels are constantly evolving, and the lines between agencies and sectors and industries are changing because just of how channels have evolved. So an example, YouTube, I would always put that as a social platform, but because it's a Google property, it's an extension of sort of the Google space. And connected TV, if you're watching YouTube, but you're watching affiliate TV, is that traditional media or is that connected media? So how has that kind of changed y'all's approach over time?
Well, we are trying to solve for client challenges, right? And so the number of tools in our portfolio, or arrows in our quiver, have grown over time as the sophistication of the digital marketing industry has grown. And so I think that's where, we can, I know we'll dive into it in a minute, our sort of overlap and also partnership with the Hodges partnership has grown over the years. And so for us, it starts with achieving client objectives, right? And so as the client objectives change, so do the platforms that we need to incorporate into our day-to-day work. And so you gave the example of YouTube. Well, what does that fit under? Is that truly digital marketing? Is it social? Is it pay to play? It can be both. It can be organic or it can be paid advertising insertions. But as Google likes to say, YouTube is the second largest search engine behind Google, and they're both owned by Google, of course, right? So bigger than any of the Microsoft products out there. So We looked at YouTube first as a search channel, but ultimately we're looking at it as a way to connect, again, our clients' messages with the right target audiences. And so YouTube for us is just another way to layer over really specific messaging over specific audience targeting.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit kind of about the bridge between our agencies and the work. And in my mind, I keep thinking about the little recycling triangle with the arrows that kind of go like that, because you can't have an SEO or SEM strategy without some of that root messaging and that root language, which I feel like comes a lot out of the work that Hodges does with our storytelling. So it feels like it fuels these campaigns with keywords, with what we know about audiences, with what we know about brand. Yeah. And then it comes back to us of like, okay, here's how people are actually operating online and that kind of thing. So can you talk a little bit about just how you see that bridge and how work done in maybe a more traditional PR setting kind of fuels and informs what your digital marketing strategies may look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been thinking about this a lot because I think as agencies, we've all had to evolve a little bit based on the sophistication of our clients, right? Mm-hmm. And so client demands improve or increase over time as their sophistication grows and as the channels mature. And what we've realized is that the elements that Hodges does really, really well, which are I would say bringing a brand to life, right? So how do you pump a soul into a brand? How do you build a brand and then establish a brand? Because people want to connect with brands that they can relate with. So that relatability and that brand building through storytelling is really critical, right? It's what separates great brands from kind of mediocre brands or forgettable brands. And so you're making brands unforgettable. And that isn't something that we do, right? So I think of that through the lens of like broadly creativity and strategy, right? And those two components are increasingly important to businesses who are looking to retain a marketing agency. Then there's the execution piece. So we've got these great ideas across the broad spectrum, and we've hit on some of them at a high level, but there's hundreds of different channels now that we can send a message out through. The execution piece is taking that amazing brand story and that strategic component and then executing on it in the wild through the right channels with the right audience research and the right targeting and the right generating the right sort of ROI and defining the right KPIs. That's something that Workshop does really well. And then, we are also analytics nerds at Workshop Digital. We love having the data tell us the story about how well our messaging is working with the target audiences that we're trying to connect with, right? And so bridging that gap is something that we've been very good at because we've been ingrained in the analytics platforms for 15 years now, and so we're pretty good at that work. So I think when I look at what is a modern agency, how do they deliver great results for clients? It's you've got to have the strategy piece. You've got to have the creative piece, right? The creative storytelling element. You've got to be able to execute really well on that. And you've got to be able to wrap all that in really strong reporting so that the client can understand that you started with this, we executed on it, and we delivered this result.
So I think there's a few things that you just set out that I want to string together because I feel like because things change so rapidly, and one of the reasons why clients may hire agencies is for our depth and breadth of knowledge. So there's a lot of education that comes into play with clients, and I feel like there can be a lot of synergies with kind of PR tactics and with digital marketing tactics, there's also a little bit of conflict at play with words, because when you're talking about creative storytelling, you may want to use certain words and position things in certain ways. And then you have maybe a brand platform that someone else created that has some elements that you need to factor in. But then there's a very real reality of how people are searching for things online, and their words may not match your words. But if you want to be found by them, you sort of need to meet them in the middle. And a particular use case that I'm thinking of is that we worked with a higher education institution, and nomenclature means very different things. So a grant is different from a scholarship, which is different from financial assistance, which is different from financial aid. But the person who's sitting at their computer, who's like, how do I pay for school, is using very different language, but language that you may not want to touch. So how do you have those conversations of this is what people are searching for and this is what you're known as in this digital space versus what you want to be known as or how you talk about yourself?
Very gently.
Carefully, tread lightly.
Very carefully, tread very lightly. I think people get married to the brand for the obvious reason, right? Mm-hmm. That's where the soul of the thing is. And if an SEO comes in and says, well, we have to put all these keywords in here so that we can optimize for, grant versus loan versus financial assistance, it can ruffle some feathers if done the wrong way. So I think the way that we approach that is let the data do the talking. So we do our homework first, and we present the sort of the logical argument for inclusion of words that match the queries that we know that users are typing into a search engine, right? Mm-hmm. That said, I am a very strong believer in brand, and I think the power of a brand to trump a keyword that's that's inadvertently put into a page title or a meta description just to make something SEO friendly is a mistake. And so I think the way that we approach it is we want to be brand first, and we have to understand the aesthetic of the brand, and then we can work within the aesthetic of the brand to make sure that we're still relevant and visible for those queries for the right audiences, right? So we do want to match keyword intent, so searcher intent, with the right content on the website. But we can do that in a tasteful way that is considerate of the brand messaging first. And I think that's always been our approach. But I have seen a lot of SEO companies out there that are just jamming in keywords. There are 300 keywords in the body copy, and it's a really bad user experience, right? You've seen those websites. We've all seen those websites where you're reading through and it's like lawn care Richmond, Virginia. If you're looking to have your lawn care Richmond, Virginia provider provide you lawn care in Richmond, Virginia, click here to get a quote from lawn care Richmond provider. It's like, wow, I'm not going to click that, right? Yeah. I'm going to back out and go look somewhere else. So I think it's striking that balance of understanding how to implement proper keyword intent into your optimization strategy without killing the overarching brand premise.
Yeah. I mean, it's in some ways you sort of need to write for the AI and write for the algorithms and write for the robots, but you still need to sound like a human. So there's an art easy. And a skill to it all.
Yeah.
So, and when you were talking about the data and analytics piece, I think that is so helpful from a client education perspective because it gives you a leg to stand on to say like, well, hey, let's test it. And, this message is performing out better than the others. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit, and if you need to think of a specific client example, but how has that part of your business informed the strategies that you have on the SEO, SEM side of the house?
So the analytics piece? Yeah. Wow. It's so number one, I think we're in the business of trust, right? Mm-hmm. Clients that trust us, empower us to do better work, and they stay around a lot longer too, right? And they work with our partners, and we have just better relationships because we're in the relationship game too, and relationships are built on trust. So ultimately, it's a relationship, and the relationship's built on trust. Data is a fast track to trust building, right? Because assuming that the data does have to be trustworthy. Mm-hmm. So we do come in and do audits first to make sure that the data is reliable and that all the tracking is configured properly, and we've got good, clean, in GA4, which is a platform we use a lot, Google Analytics product. That all the event tagging is set up properly so that all the events are firing, and we have to check that pretty often because things can break, right? As we know, people go in and change source code and things do break. Assuming all of that's true, leveraging analytics is how we bridge the gap from, we've been burned by agencies in the past. How are you going to be different to, wow, I've never known that about my own website or my own business. And now that I know that, I'm ready to do more. I'm ready to learn more. So that, I could give specific client examples, but that's true for 100% of our clients. Like I think all clients come in maybe a little bit skeptical. It's a new relationship. You're still trying to build trust. the analytics is a game changer when it comes to building that bridge more rapidly. The other thing that we like about using analytics data is that it makes our clients smarter marketers. Mm-hmm. And so then our clients are better able to hold us accountable. And that accountability is one of our core values. And I think it's the ethical thing to do. But most, historically, a lot of agencies were purposefully redacting data because they didn't want their clients getting too smart. They liked them better when they were just paying them and accepting the report. What we're doing is totally transparent, right? And it's about building trust and delivering real results. Mm-hmm. And you can't do that if you're obfuscating some of the data. So for us, the data journey often leads to new discoveries about maybe channels that are underperforming. And an example, I'll give you one client example. We had a big real estate client that multiple locations, and they were spending close to $1 million a year in print advertising for featured properties across multiple publications. I don't remember what the tally was, but it was probably 20 plus. They had no idea if that was working or not, but they were spending all of this money. We went in and created tracking URLs. So this was an example of like print's not even our world, right? But how can we get digital data on analog marketing channels? Well, we created tracking URLs and appended them and gave them to the client, who then sent them to the publications, who swapped out the other URLs for these new tracking URLs. And we were looking at the traffic coming in. We were looking at the search volume of brand traffic, which can be a secondary metric, and they just weren't driving any traffic. And so that client made a decision after many months of studying that to transition some of that, $1 million of traditional spend into a more digital focused approach. And they didn't need to spend anywhere near as much. And we were like, we don't need all of that. And they got better results and much better results. And I think that was an eye-opening moment, because what they're realizing is where their client base maybe used to use these traditional platforms as their primary way to learn about real estate. Now they're going to Zillow first, and they're going to other places or one of the many platforms that are out there, right, first, and then maybe going to their website second. So that was an opportunity for us to use analytics data to bridge that gap for them.
Well, and I think that's the beauty of paid media on these channels is there is so much there to measure, to track, to monitor. We've heard from other partners and clients the traditional out of home, the print media, that's all going down. But it's because the efficiency is so much greater with digital. It's like if you want to only talk to the 18-year-olds in your target audience that drive Toyota Camrys, that's the thing I always do. It's like you can find those people online and you can market just to them instead of having, wasted dollars outside of that. And then to go back to your analytics piece too, it's when you were talking about telling the data story, it's telling the whole story. Like not every metric is going to be positive month over month. And sometimes you find the learnings in the metrics that are going down, and being able to present that and add the context to the client to educate them helps them, like exactly what you just said, with moving your dollars around so they, can protect their jobs and their value at their companies as well.
Oh, 100%. Our job is to make our clients look good, and our clients tend to be marketers. Increasingly, though, marketing and sales are becoming sort of a unified body, right? Where marketing has a real responsibility for revenue. It used to be marketing would say, well, we did our job. Sales isn't closing the leads, and sales would say, well, marketing is generating crappy leads, which is why we can't hit our sales targets. And now, senior level leaders are saying, you two are now both responsible. These two groups that used to be sort of pointing fingers at each other are now on the same team. So you have to be able to understand and, to your point, look at the full picture. And you're right. I mean, marketing is about experimentation. That's why we love it. It's fun. You're constantly testing new ideas and new things. They don't all work. In fact, a lot of them don't, right? I think our clients trust us more when we own the failures as well, right? If we're trying to paint a picture, because with data, and I've seen this before, where agencies will try to paint a rosy picture when things aren't rosy. and you can kind of manipulate the data where you sort of hide the stuff that you don't want them to know. Like, well, really conversions month over month or year over year are down. But look at this traffic is up, to this blog post over here or whatever. And you can kind of get people to, especially if they don't know much about how to read and interpret analytics data, to focus on the one shiny good object instead of the things that aren't working. And I think it's incumbent upon us as marketers to, be upfront and say, look, when we work together, not all the things that we test are going to work, but we're going to learn from the things that don't work as well. And that's going to make us better marketers for you in the future. And you're going to learn because we may test a headline or a call to action or a special messaging that we feel like resonates. And to your point, we can target only people that want the Toyota Camrys. And if we think we've got the world's best message or offer and it came from corporate or if it came from the CEO or whatever, and we test it specifically to people that we know are in market for Toyota Camrys and it bombs, then you don't go spend the $1 million on the traditional ad buy with the same messaging because it's going to bomb there too, right? Because we already know we've hit the target market and that thing fell flat. So I think to your other point, digital marketing is a fantastic way to experiment and test in a much cost-effective manner to a much more targeted audience where if you're throwing up a billboard on 95, everyone's going to see it probably if they even look at it, but almost no one is going to take an action, right? Because most people, it's not relevant for them.
So we're very close to the end. I'm keeping an eye on the time. So I'm going to ask sort of 2 rapid fire questions, and I'll ask the one and then pause and then ask the second one. So if someone was looking to get into digital marketing, so someone who is looking to work in this space, what is the one piece of advice you would give someone who is like, I want to be a digital marketer?
Oh, man. With AI on the scene, it changes things a little bit. I would say understand AI. I would give them 2 pieces of advice. Understand AI and the role that AI is going to play in the future of work for all of us. If you understand AI and can work with AI, you have probably more job security. We all need to be thinking about that. But understand analytics. Get an analytics certification. They're free. Google offers those. We tell everyone, every intern that's ever worked for us, every college junior and senior that's like, how do I get a job with you all? It's like, first, go get analytics certified. Being able to interpret data is a learnable skill that not a lot of colleges prepare people with. But if you want to be a marketer, you have to understand data. It's free to take the certification and then get an account and just goof around in it and experiment, right? Because if you can start to understand what these metrics actually mean, you can be way more valuable to an agency or an in-house marketing team that you would be, trying to work for.
And then sort of in the same kind of spirit is if a client is not, if an organization is not currently investing in a digital marketing strategy, what is the number one reason and why they should be?
There are very few companies that can't benefit from it. I will say, like, we have met companies in the past where it's like, yeah, in your industry, digital marketing really doesn't make sense. If you are a 100% referral driven business in healthcare and you are not going to benefit directly from a digital marketing strategy because everything is patients being referred from a primary care physician or something else, don't spend money in digital, right? Unless you want to protect your brand. And so there's some arguments to be made even in that case. Mm-hmm. But for the rest of us that are looking at digital marketing, I would say, again, it's where your competitors are, and it's where your competitors are increasingly moving. Even if we work with some large industrial clients that build parts for spaceships, and you would not think that digital marketing would be high on their list, but it is, and they're doing fantastic, as a business because of it. Your competitors, even if you're in an industry that's a laggard to the internet and a laggard to digital marketing, look around. Your competitors are increasingly starting to get there, and you don't have to spend a fortune. You can start really small. A few $1,000s a month normally is enough to make a positive impact. But you do need to be there. You need to understand where your customers are and get in front of them. And most of us have smartphones, and most of us are on them most of the time. And the people that are replacing the people that maybe you used to sell to,
digital natives.
They're digital natives. They're internet first. Yeah. So they're going to go there. They're going to Google it. They're going to search it. They're going to use their AI assistant to try to figure out the solution first. So, yeah, I think for for most businesses in the world, a strong brand first, strong story to tell, and a really thoughtful digital marketing plan with great execution and good reporting is going to set you up for success.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Brian. We're at time. That's a wrap on this episode.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Teaming Up podcast. Teaming Up is brought to you by the Hodges Partnership, a strategic communications agency that specializes in storytelling through public relations, media relations, content marketing, and social media. The Teaming Up podcast is a Happy Committee production. Episodes are released monthly. Subscribe on your favorite podcast service so you never miss an episode.